Jump?
Yes, but jungle and Hammond.
Let me know when you want to jump. Or follow me. Alright, 3, 2.
Oh, they hacked me. That was Sombra.
Lever's discorded.
They're all.
Okay. So first thing right off the bat is if we want to play Sombra, one of the biggest advantages of playing Sombra is scouting, knowing what our enemies are playing, and knowing exactly what they have. And so first and foremost that I would mention is that you didn't really do any scouting of your enemies, and so you don't know what they have. And then even if you didn't, say you failed, right now we are at 15 seconds, so you can hit tab, see exactly what your enemies are running, and you don't even have to stress. But because you don't know, that changes the way you can play as Sombra. If they have a Zen, who's a very easy hack target and he's playing in the back, versus if they have a Brig, massively changes the way you can play. But you didn't scout, and then you just pushed main, which Sombra is not usually the DPS that you're just going to push main. She's like one of the few DPS that are still good at flanking. So like so far, if your team wins this, you had nothing to do with it.
More slow.
Can you please, sweetheart, not talk to me when I'm trying to play? Because it's distracting me.
They have Sombra now as well. I've got mines.
Love you. Why don't you go and get the laptop?
Okay, everyone come back. Everyone come back.
What?
So cool, yeah. You don't need to be anywhere near your team right now. You should not be anywhere near your team. You don't have a translocator placed. What's your plan? Not good. Have to have a translocator placed whenever you're going in.
Range one. There you go, dead.
And your 6 stack actually has decent enough communication for gold, and so if you commonly stack with these guys and stuff, that might be part of the reason that your Sombra is at a gold level. But so far, from the minute or two that I've seen, your Sombra is not at a gold level. And it's easy stuff to fix too. Don't frontline. Start playing the backline. Start making sure that you're actually utilizing your abilities. You have a translocator in a position where you can use it.
I don't know. I mean, we lost down.
Like, the fact that you didn't have a translocator there is crazy.
I just got translate and I'm not going to use it.
Yeah, no.
I hasn't when we tried to.
Killing the Junkrat.
Wow, they really don't notice me. I'm just sitting here.
Okay, alright.
It was right in front of you, kind of a general awareness thing, because you walked into it. Wasn't in some sort of tricky spot or anything.
Lever's up top and.
So you just hacked him and saw that Ryan has ult because you hacked him. So that would probably be a really good call to make.
I used that a bit too sorry.
The Junkrat's just down top spamming.
Cool, so when you ulted, do you realize that you guys were down 3? It was 5v2 when you ulted. So gotta really think about that, because we waited 3 minutes for that EMP, and we probably won't have another one within the next 40 seconds. And our EMP was used when no one was even available to follow up on it.
There's a.
You overextended so much.
Ryan is discorded.
Right.
Gunpoint.
Messi dead.
More. Nice. Good job, guys.
Junkrat top. He's gonna touch last second.
I'm going for jump.
Sombra.
Cool. So you guys did win that, but I do hope that you realize, like, when you watch this back, you spent so long out of the fight because you didn't have a translocator. You spent so long respawning, you know, failed hacks because you did them like right next to a Moira, that you didn't really contribute very much to that fight.
Kill Bastion.
Mercy's dead.
Bastion slow.
Okay, watch out. Die.
Oh, okay. Another general awareness thing there. Gotta think about traps, death bombs, you know, where the Rhine is. Like the Rhine is just suddenly swinging on you and you didn't see him.
Okay, I've got mines.
That was
We
a
might-
really nice push though.
Got 2 ticks, I think that's pretty good off.
Almost all of it.
You guys have multiple
we'll mine an
ults.
EMP, okay?
Yeah, there you guys go. Talk about that. Talk about your win condition
Junkrat right side.
and go on it.
Here we there.
Genji one. Nice.
Right, let's go, let's
Go, 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 go. EMP if you
The
can.
Moira
EMP.
back here.
Messi.
EMP.
So a better move that most Sombras would have done there is thrown their EMP right into the middle of the battlefield. You throw it kind of up high, like right above like the Rhine shield or something like that.
Yes, behind us.
Or throw your translocator into the battlefield. You throw it up high, like right above like the Rhine shield, just like that, and then you teleport to it, because then you don't have to worry about dying to the random spam that you like walked into. When you dropped your EMP, you actually only had about 15 health left, and so you could not have cut that any closer. And so you gotta, you know, think about those little ways, how to get your ult off, how to stay alive against enemy ults. There's a Ryan right behind you. I really think you gotta work on the general awareness. He charged right past you and you kind of just didn't acknowledge him. Okay, Junkrat. A little bit different than Sombra, how you play. But funny enough, you were playing your Sombra kind of how Morris said you should play your Junkrat. Front line, kind of with the team, constantly putting damage on the tanks.
Trace on the bridge. Zari one. Nice. I'm down, Hunter left side.
So when you're playing in a 6-stack like this, your job is not to turn around and get the Tracer. Even if you're playing in a bunch of randoms, as long as they're in comms, your job as Junkrat is never to go after the Tracer. You should have stayed spamming the tanks, made it very hard for them to push you guys, because did you see how Ryan literally ended up on top of you? If you would have continued shooting at him, it would have been a lot more difficult for him to do that. And because you turned to shoot the Tracer and you weren't involved with those tanks, they had all the space they wanted. Cool. So you're in a risky position, right? But now you know they've scouted you. Tracer has seen you, Tracer has shot at you, so you don't really want to or need to be in this position anymore.
Get the break. The break's like in there on own.
Oh fuck, she faded.
Zari one.
You see how their Moira threw their ult when they were down 3? That's kind of the same problem that you previously had with your EMPs. That Moira was not going to win the fight by throwing her ult, and her ult could have actually been valuable later, and so it ended up being a pretty large waste.
Nice one.
What? There's too many colours in my face, I can't see anything.
I'm
All I had was the coalescence, I couldn't tell whose was whose.
That one's purple and yellow, that one's black and yellow.
Fire, put your trap. Oh, okay, that'll be alright. I just want. I was say watch it on the right, just in case they try and come to the side. Focus this shield.
Okay, cool. So I get what you guys are trying to do here, right? By putting the trap right here. But so think about this, right? This trap here is not far enough into this room. Let's say there was a Hanzo and a McCree. They could both stand right here and shoot your entire team. Totally free. And let's say that they were all pushing this way, and you have a trap here, even if the whole team pushes that way, it's not going to notify you soon enough. And so what you need to do is you need to put your trap more so like down in this area, like by the stairs, because that's actually going to give you guys enough time. Just because your trap goes off, that's not the only way that you have to know. So let's say they want to push this way with a Ryan. Ryan is too tall. He can't make this jump, okay? And so he has to go through here. So one, they either step on your trap, which is just fine. You know they're there. They're trapped for a second, whatever. Two, they destroy your trap because Ryan has to walk through it, which again is just fine. You know he's there. But where your trap is now, it's easily dodgeable. They can just go around it. They can get plenty of value by staying back in this room, and it would be too late even if they destroyed this trap for you guys to know that they were coming this way. So your trap is essentially useless there for what you're using it for. You're using it for scouting, and it's not working.
Get this run, get it run, get it run. He's gonna shout.
We gotta, and funny enough, Brigitte, like with her boop, has to think about this a lot. Junkrat has to think about this a lot. We maybe need to think about the unintended consequences of some of our boops with our mines and stuff like that. Like, you guys knew Ryan was gonna shatter, your team called it and stuff, and then you booped Ryan, like, past your shield and just made it easier for him to shatter.
Yep.
I had to use that.
That's fine, that's fine, that's good. You'll build it up quick, don't worry.
And they got no ticks as well.
They have a Pharaoh now.
Do you switch off?
You could go somewhere again for this point, but hack the one underneath.
Yeah, sure.
It'll be Sombra as well.
I've got my Doom wheel, so shall I try and I'll try and scooch a bit forward.
Why not use it right now? You can go around the right side. You physically as Junkrat don't need to be up here to use your ult. It has a super long drive time and it's fast.
Yeah, they're going right. Ryan's right.
There you go. Now you have plenty of time to switch. Pharah, you don't need to go for this Ryan right now. Pharah and Ana are dead. They're not going to push without Pharah and Ana. And if they do, then they're honestly just throwing. But now you've almost fucked up for your team, because your team had a 4v6, which you just turned into a 5v6, and you fed the Ryan's ult. So you need to be careful about that kind of stuff, about how you switch when you climb. And even more important is if you play tanks. Like if you're playing Roadhog and you're like, okay, I'll just die to switch real quick, you're feeding 600 health worth of ult. That's a lot of ult.
Don't all go at once, don't all go at once.
Yeah, it seems like they're going like
right,
that.
they're going right.
Yeah, they're going right.
You got junk as well underneath.
Come back up, come back up.
Oh, he's one. He's behind you. Oh,
I'm healed.
Don't step in it. Okay.
Ryan
Nice
underneath.
trap. Thank you.
I'm
Rise
slept.
one.
I can't heal right now.
It's really low. Where'd you go?
She's hacked.
Again with the junk mines. You gotta remember, you play junk.
It's winnable.
You gotta remember. And it's all coming back to that just general awareness. There is some gaps in the general awareness that you're going to want to fill if you want to climb. And that it's a combination of things. It's where you're standing. It's kind of knowing what's going on with your allies and your enemies. Knowing if it's good to throw your ult there. Even just hitting tab. So you would have known that your enemy team switched from a Pharah to a Reaper. Because that is a big difference. Now what would you do if that Reaper switched to Widow and suddenly headshot you? And you had no clue?
I'm down.
Shooting him.
He's up top.
Reaper.
Reaper's nanoed on point.
You can call to your team here, hey, I'm about to have EMP. Like,
Ryan's hacked.
because that's going to change the way they play. That's going to change the way if they're ready to follow up. Instead, all you did was call it like at last second. And so you don't know that they were ready.
Reaper's got ult. He's hacked. He's fallen down, but he's hacked. He's got ult. So. Reaper's half. He's dead. I got him.
He's down.
Nice. I have Bongo.
Reaper next. Yeah, they're gonna try
Yeah, cool. So you have a second till the next team fight starts. Reaper's not alive yet, so why not go hack the mini in the right room real quick? Like, what are you doing by standing
No,
here?
it's fine, it's fine.
Sombra's so nice because you can always be getting value. It doesn't seem like that mini will be a big deal, but if that mini is the difference between one of their healers living or not, you could have hacked both minis in this time.
He's gonna jump over.
And it's such an easy way to give your team and you just a tiny, tiny, tiny advantage.
Was that focus Reaper, really?
Yeah.
Right.
He's coming in now. Hack him.
He's just feeding off me. Nice.
Zara to the Zara, yeah. She's hacked.
I made the right turn around.
You should be trying to throw your translocator behind her and then hack her right now. That's what I would try and do.
Anna's on the right here.
More is like half.
Your translocator being thrown on point makes no sense. Because if you're in danger, it's probably going to be because you were on point.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna die here actually. Like,
To the left, please. Alright, let's group back up.
Reaper.
No.
You got
Come
it.
back, come back, come back.
He's one.
You're just getting like so little value right now because you're playing Sombra on the front line. You could be in the back hacking them. You could be hacking health packs, but you're playing like a soldier or a McCree right now, where you would kind of stay around your shield, XYZ, and it's not working for you.
I'm still on point, people.
And it shouldn't work for you. It's not the right way to play.
They've burned everything.
Just stand point. I'm slapped on point.
I'm down. Moira, focus down that Moira.
I'm coming in now. I'm gonna heal straight away.
I missed it.
Big heals coming through.
Can we focus this Reaper at the top?
Right on point.
Stay on the point.
I'll get this Reaper.
Reaper's hacked. Just shred him.
Got him.
Fucking yeah.
Okay.
Nicely done.
So good win.
Holy shit.
But definitely a lot to work on. Definitely need to focus on general awareness is going to be the first one. Looking at the ground to seeing if there's a Junkrat trap there. Watching the kill feed to know that all of your allies are dead, so you shouldn't throw your ult. Hitting tab to see if your enemies have switched, to see what ults you have. That would definitely be the first one that I would work on. And if you're going to play Sombra specifically, please focus on playing a little bit more of a useful or like a style that gets you more value, because the way you were playing, you might as well have just playing like McCree and you would have done more, because a lot of times you were right up front and a lot of times you were right on the front line. Like your flashbang on McCree would have been so valuable to you there, because most of the time you were one of the most frontline people on your team. That is pretty much never where Sombra should be. Even if you're just like on the opposite side of your team, like say the enemy team's on point and you go around your team or something, that allows you to get easy hacks, because then the Rhine can't shield you and say the Orisa bullets coming at him or whatever. And so it allows you to get easy hacks, it allows you to have easy escapes. And then on Sombra specifically, you have to work on your translocator usage, putting it in smart places where it's not too far, but not too close, and making sure that you always have one. You should never engage, unless it's like a 1 health Zen that you're finishing off, without a translocator being placed, because that's Sombra's whole point. Otherwise, she dies so easy. Her hack and her translocator are all that really matters. If Sombra didn't go invisible, she would still be just as useful. Honestly, that would be my biggest two. If you work on your translocator for Sombra, playing just trying to make sure you're getting more value, not frontlining, either flanking or just flanking for a hack and then frontlining or something, or even hacking health packs. And then 2, making sure you always have a translocator and that it's in kind of a better place. because oftentimes it was too far, or it was literally on the point, or it was like in the room next to. So that this is very, very generally speaking, and they'll still change versus different comps and stuff. But here, so that you can see this real quick. Okay. If you're on defense, the best places to put a translocator are in this area and in this area, in my opinion. The only problem with those, and this is kind of a big issue for Sombra on defense, is neither of them have any health opportunities. And so if you're translocating, you need to be doing it very rapidly and making sure that you're not getting caught. Making sure that you're not getting caught with high amounts of damage. And if you're going to get caught with high amounts of damage, probably just throw your translocator right here. You can throw it under the bridge, but it's very risky, and it takes you out of the fight for almost the exact amount of time, because this distance right here is so small, and this distance right here is about the same length. And so I personally almost always throw mine right here, because it's so easy for me to get health real quick, and it changes depending on the comp my enemy team is running, whatever, but that's because I play a more aggressive Sombra. And obviously that's assuming that your enemies are on point. If your enemies are getting like hard stalled at the choke, then yeah, throw your translocator here, or even throw it here, and you can have a really good time. And if you're in the backline flanking, this mega that's like under this area here is one of the best things on the planet, because if you're really flanking, like say they have a Zen Mercy or something, and you just want to farm those healers, it's so rare for enemies to go back here that they'll almost never see you in your translocator, and you can pop out, shoot, go back, shoot, go back, and it's fantastic. But I don't ever want to see your translocator like here. That doesn't make any sense, because if your enemies are pressuring point, then where are you going to translocate to? What's the point? So that is a big no. You threw it like back here, which I don't totally understand, because it provides the same amount of cover as like this position, but it does not provide any health, and it's further. So if you wanted to go here, you might as well just go to the spawn. It's the same distance comparatively. So definitely nowhere really within this zone. If your enemy is like pressuring point, anywhere in here doesn't really make sense. It's a little bit simpler when you're on, say, attack. So let's say you're on attack first point, right? So personal favorite is to throw my translocator in this room. Oftentimes I'll throw it in this plant here because you can't really see it, and hack the mega. And so that's simple enough. It lets you rinse and repeat over and over and over again. And just so we're clear, this is the upstairs room. Downstairs makes almost no sense because a lot of times enemies rotate over there, and so you can get really screwed. You kept throwing your translocator in this area, and your enemies would be like right here. And if they would just use their ears, you would be dead. And so I don't like this at all. Depending on, again, how you're playing, if you're just staying in the backline the whole time, a lot of people do go over here to this mega again, because it's not a long distance, depending on what you're running, what the enemy team is running. Some people even like go up on these stairs, but I prefer places where I can consistently heal myself. So that's why this is my favorite location by far. 2, 3. It can also be, if your team is pushing through this left side, it can be really common to throw your translocator like in this room, because it isn't too far. So you can throw it right here, go around, try and get a hack real quick, and then translocate back, and your team will be right here. and so it kind of gives you a good opportunity to do that. It's not terribly uncommon to throw it here, but I don't always agree with that. Yes, it does give you healing, but enemies are very often kind of pushing here, and if they know you're there, that's such an easy place to destroy your translocator. But so those are some of my favorite spots. It even can be viable to, on like your first attack, to throw it somewhere in this back here, because then that gives you two choices. If they've like rotated back to point, you have a super close way to get there, and you have a mini here. If they have not rotated back to point, then you go back this way and continue hacking them there. But where you were currently throwing your translocator was, you threw it here, you threw it here. That's all I remember off the top of my head. But neither of those make any sense by comparison. They just, this one is just so far, and it doesn't inherently bring you any value. If it brings you value, then that's okay, but this spot does not. And then down below here, it just makes no sense when the high ground is so close and gives you so much more value.